I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Human Design Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share something really amazing with you. And it's actually one of our new Millions of Millionaires sponsors. So to introduce this Bodygraph chart software that we've been using that's been mind-blowing. So I want to welcome the amazing Taylor Dyson, who is my incredible operations manager. Welcome along, Taylor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is actually something that we implemented when?
April.
Yeah.
And this year.
We were just trialing it out because they'd reached out to us in regards to sponsoring the podcast or something like that, wasn't it? And so it kind of wasn't even on our radar, and we tried it out and we had such low expectations. And then what happened?
Well, I remember sending you a message going, Emma, why are we not using this? Because I was mind blown. You know, we get a lot of requests for stuff like that. And, you know, there's new softwares all the time. And I clicked on it, like you said, with very low expectations. And I started looking through what they can do. And I got so excited. You know, the MG in me was like, oh my God, we have to use this. And I saw the potential of it. And it has delivered more than expected. It's really awesome.
Amazing. Now, before we get into the actual numbers, because I know numbers with Taylor is a thing in our business. She loves to share all the numbers. Let's just tell the listeners exactly who it's for and what it is.
Yeah, so it's a great tool for anyone who uses human design in their business. So if you're a human design reader, a human design coach, or just someone who uses human design in your business, if you incorporate it into whatever you do, it's a way for you to embed an actual human design chart tool into your website. So, you know, if you want someone to get their human design chart, you probably send them to an outside platform somewhere, go to this website, put in your details and get your chart, whatever that platform might be. There's a couple big ones. And what's cool about this is that it allows you to put that tool on your own website and it's yours. So when someone comes and, puts their information into your website, they get their chart, and then you can hook it up to your email list, to your newsletter. You can have it linked to your own content. You can customize the reports afterwards that they get, so it's your own descriptions of what, this type is or this profile. So that's kind of what it is.
Oh my God, I love it. And it's so cool because I actually remember when JENNI'S, because it must be the same software that JENNI'S used and before anyone else. Yeah, right. And I was always like, wow, her chart looks so beautiful and it's on her website. That's so cool. So yeah, when we started using it, I was like, this is beautiful. I'm really excited that we can do it. But let's talk hard numbers. Like we have had some serious success with this, just adding this to our business. So tell everyone a little bit about the growth that we've experienced through using this.
Yeah. So since implementing it into our website in April, there have been over 4,000 people that have downloaded their chart through the website. And that's unique. That's not, someone who does it twice, because a lot of people, they'll go back because they won't download the PDF or something, or they lost it or misplaced it. That's unique chart downloads. So it's even more for people doing it twice. And it's been really amazing. It's more than tripled the size of the email list. And, you can set up sequences afterwards for people to, give them more information and keep everything in-house.
Yeah. And because one of the really big things for us is obviously human design made simple. So it gives us the opportunity to give our way of teaching human design directly to the people who want it. And I love that. I love that every single person that wants to get their chart, that downloads it, we can then support them on their journey straight away, which is, of course, what you set up, because you're amazing, to make sure that not only do they get their chart, but they also get this support, free content support that helps them as they're, new to human design and on their journey. So beautiful. So how do people access this? What's it called? And I know that there's a benefit for listeners of the podcast.
Yes. So you can go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to bodygraphchart.com. And they have been kind enough to give the listeners of the Human Design Podcast a 50% off discount for 12 months, which is huge because it's already inexpensive to begin with. And then the 50% discount is going to put it at $25 a month. That's in US dollars. So wherever you are in the world, it'll be, a little bit different, but 50% off for 12 months. And the code is Human Design Podcast. And we'll put that in the show notes too for everyone. And one of the other things I want to say that's really cool about this chart tool is that it's 100% customizable, and it actually gives Chiron and the 4 arrows, which is what a lot of chart tools don't do that. So that's one thing that a lot of people are drawn to when they go to get our chart from our website is, I can get the arrows because of it, or my Chiron gates.
I love that. It's so cool. So check out the show notes, people. Get on it, because really it is such a powerful, and as Taylor says, inexpensive tool. Like, it paid for itself in the first 2 days, I seem to remember, or first day, I seem to remember. So it's so valuable, and it gives you the opportunity to really build your brand and your communication with your clients. So thank you. Go check it out. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. It is that time of the month. We've got transits. So welcome the beautiful Jenni Crowther.
Thank you, Emma. Hi, everyone. It's very kind of Emma to say the beautiful Jenni Crowther, as we've just been discussing how I haven't showered for a long time and I'm feeling pretty skanky.
Well, you've got a beautiful heart, and that's all that matters.
Glowing from the inside.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. So here we are again talking about the transits. We're going to have a look back at May and then tell us what to experiment with in June.
Yeah, I felt, I suppose, a little bit of what's the word? Anticipation, trepidation actually is probably a better word, when I fell into May, just because of this 360 channel, the channel of mutation from the root to the sacral that's been on for most of the month. But for me personally, living through it has been pretty good, but still pretty chaotic. So the dominating influence this month has been Jupiter in gate 3, Pluto still in gate 60, making this channel of mutation, which is the central channel if you're looking at the body graph from the root to the sacral. And for those who listen to the podcast a lot, like listen to the transits for maybe more than a year, we talked about the energy of gate 3, which is where Jupiter's been all month, as the kind of energy when you've moved house, or like you've got a new phone and everything's chaotic. So you've done something new, or something new has happened, and you don't quite, like, nothing's quite as it used to be or as it usually is. This energy of, it's called difficulty in the beginning. And so this chaotic kind of vibe being fueled by the root pressure from gate 60. So the general feeling for the month of May has been something major has changed and my routine is shot to pieces, or something like that. So I don't know I don't know if you've been experiencing that.
It's really interesting as you're speaking. I would say massive shifts and changes, but I've had one of the most magical months ever. Like, things have just been dropping in, but big shifts. Like on my last podcast episode, I told everyone how I just manifested my dream horse. I had no intention of doing that until next year. I just had a discussion with my youngest son, wrote it down once and then forgot about it. And this horse just appeared in my life, and it was so effortless and everything just fell into place. But it's a massive shift for me because, it's me. So I'm not going to just have a pony that I, bump around on once a week. I'm like, okay, cool. Looks like we're back into competing. We're doing all of the things.
Oh my goodness.
So big shift and so easy, effortless, so meant to be. And even to the point that as I'm going through this process, a friend of mine started talking about, or he was showing me, he's got sacred geometry tattooed all over his body, and that sent me down this whole rabbit hole of sacred geometry. And now I want to tattoo this something that represents legacy onto like my heart space on my body. So I've been looking for this image and rah, rah, rah. And the freaking horse's name is Legacy. I'm like, what the? I know, right? Like, that's what May's been like. The business, I feel like I've been working with the business. I know a lot of people have been listening to us, or at least me, talk about working as a consultant, all this sort of stuff. And I've been not just, I would call resourcefully hustling, but I've been working hard, and there's been a bridge. I've been bridging a gap, like expansion. You have to have courage to expand, because you have to say yes to things that your brain and your mind are like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to bridge that gap. But I did. I just said yes. And I feel like May, it's so like, maybe at the beginning of May, I was coming off the back of the chaos, but May, everything is just the ordering. Like it's, and being so shown so clearly that, there is, I am unlimited, like, yes, there are kind of like universal laws to abide by, but as long as I'm abiding by those, it's magical. So that's what my May's been incredible.
Yeah. I mean, same for me, really. I feel like I've got an example to share from a friend as well, which really sort of talks to the 360. But same for me, like a long anticipated major change comes about, and yes, it's not chaos, maybe isn't the word. It's just, it's just the routine is out.
Yeah.
But
and the disorder in the beginning.
Yeah. But it's wonderful, because it's what I've wanted and I've anticipated and I've felt into it. And I've, I'm finally on the road again. I'm back here in the Pyrenees Mountains, where it's my literally paradise for me, like my favorite place on the planet. And so, yeah, there's chaos driving across Europe and sleeping in a van, and it's a very different life to being kind of in the burbs, but wonderful.
Yeah.
But I had a really, really great example of this from a friend who sent me the standard "Jenny, what the hell is the planets doing?" text message, which I get a lot of. Whenever anyone's life starts to wobble, I get the message just saying, what are the planets doing? So what had happened in her life, and I got permission from her to share this story. Her husband finally got the redundancy that he's been waiting for and pushing for a long time, like maybe even years. He's been wanting to be made redundant, and he's like, come on, guys, I'm just twiddling my thumbs over here. Please make me redundant. And her daughter, who's like 2.5, finally woke up one morning and was like, I'm potty training now. So any parent knows that potty training is pretty chaotic when it finally happens.
It was the worst. It was 3 days only for me. I was very lucky, but it was the worst 3 days of my life.
So that happened basically within days of each other. And my friend's routine, her, she's usually goes to bed 9:30, wakes up early. She's finding herself still awake at 1:30 a.m. Her screen time was up 80%. She was like, I'm in chaos. Those two have gone through major changes. What the hell is going on? Now, I know the family charts. We've done a family reading together, so I'm able to look at it. And so her husband and her daughter both have the channel 360 in their Bodygraph. They already have the channel of mutation. And so it's like this transit provided finally the pulse for that energy to push through for them. Whereas my friend doesn't have 360 in her Bodygraph defined, although of course she's around their version of it a lot of the time, most of the time. But for her, what the transit seems to have done is brought in this, this universal energy, defining it for herself all day, every day. And it seems to have thrown her other channels out of whack. So the 360 is one of the 3 format energy channels, and it has a huge influence on the rest of the channels in the chart. So anyone who's got one of those 3, root to sacral channels, that energy will influence every other channel in the Bodygraph. So for her defined channels in her natal chart are the 515, a design of being in her own flow, the 5710, a design of intuitively knowing what is correct behavior for her, the 5818, this design of step-by-step improvement and insatiable need to correct her behavior all the time. And then plus gate 21 as her personality sun, which is all about being in control of your choices. So her whole design is around correct behavior, intuitively knowing what's correct for her, being in her own flow. The 360 channel comes on and the whole lot goes out the window. And she's like, I don't know what's going on. So I just thought it was a really solid example of that channel in a body graph, in a family unit, and then what happens when a transit comes through.
I love that. Yeah, I think the beginning of May definitely felt a little bit like that. Didn't we have Mercury retrograde or something? Or
Yeah. Mercury was retrograde until what date did it? It went direct on the 13th of May. 14th
yeah, because that's one thing I did feel, and I usually don't, other than that one time that I did.
Yeah.
But I think the one that's through, because it was through the end of April to early May, wasn't it? Like that was just that was a weird one for me.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, when I did that analysis on my friend's design and then was like, oh, I wonder how that relates to my design. And it's also true that my channels, the 31/7 channel of leadership and the 48/16 channel of talent and wisdom and all that, usually those channels are being called upon by people, their projected energies, their collective energies. Usually the collective is calling on those channels for leadership and wisdom. Not this month, not a single one, not a single client session, nobody calling on those channels, because probably my energy was more focused around dealing with the 360 and packing, traveling, all of that stuff. I wasn't actually really available physically. But also the whole planet's getting it. So I'm just assuming that everyone's dealing with their own mutation, their own change, their own chaos. And usually, getting readings or coaching is something that you do when you're relatively stable, not when you're firefighting.
Yeah. True. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, just that, I mean, everyone listening can kind of relate back to whether they felt like it's just not business as usual. That's basically what it feels like. Not business as usual, but difference, newness.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Because I would say not necessarily business as usual, but massive upgrade. So definitely lots of changes. We've got a new team member. I got a new horse. The whole business is up leveled. Even podcast guests and interviews have up leveled. It's been epic. It's been an epic month. Yeah,
amazing that you spoke to Lee after the little conference. When I for the listeners, I'd sent Emma a message. I was listening to Lee's podcast and had this sudden thing that I had to tell Emma that I thought she should get in touch with Lee. And when I messaged Emma, I was like, I think you should reach out to Lee Harris and see if. And she was like, I'm already on it. And this is the confirmation, the external confirmation that I needed.
Yeah.
And then it came out. I was like, this is amazing. Wow.
Oh, and do you know what? And I've for all of you that are listening to all the podcasts that I say this on and Instagram, I'm going to say it again. He's dead set the real deal. Like one of the nicest humans I've ever met before I hit record, genuinely. And like after it, he was like, here's my personal email, stay in touch. Let's do something together. And I'm just like, you're awesome. I've followed him for many years. I really love him. And I was so surprised that he could, I don't know, like the word isn't impressed, but being in his energy is incredibly unique. It's very rare to be in the energy that feels that authentic, that real, that heart exposed kindness. Like, yeah, really, really beautiful human. I feel so incredibly grateful to have had that opportunity.
It's interesting. He mentioned on the recording near the end about the banking situation. And it was so curious because instead, for my original prep for this podcast, for the talking about the Channel 360, I had a whole piece on international banking, which I then subsequently deleted because I was like, no one wants me ranting on about international banking. But when he mentioned that, I was like, maybe I was actually on the right track with that.
Yeah.
So I'll very quickly summarize because I can't actually remember exactly what I was going to say. But when I was thinking about it being Jupiter and Pluto making that channel, because Pluto is kind of the the director of the realm, if you like. It's not just about individual personal changes like we've been talking about. It is about massive global shifts, especially when it's connected to Jupiter. And the first example that came to me would be an individual country, or I was thinking of Switzerland particularly, some smallish, relatively independent nation would change their banking system. And when I researched it, it turns out that Switzerland had tried to do this. It had a referendum in 2018, I think it was, on going to debt-free banking. So I don't know if any people listening know the banking system is basically just debt. And when governments create new money, inverted commas, they're not actually creating new money, they're creating more debt.
Yeah.
And Switzerland had, being a very famous banking nation, it had a referendum on, could we just divorce ourselves from the international banking scene and independently go to a new system? I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically also known as debt-free banking, so that the money, again, inverted commas, because money's an idea, was more real than the current situation, which is all of the money is actually just debt. So what I was thinking of, how the 360 would play out on a global scale, was it could create the pulse for some nation like, say, Switzerland, to completely change the way that they bank, to just, change their money completely. Now, Switzerland's probably got too much to lose, but it could be a country that has not a lot to lose. Iceland, for example, or if Scotland get their independence, they might do something like that. Maybe some of the countries, I don't know, like over in Asia. So what it might look like is this pulse of initiating energy that is very individualistic, that is basically part of a pressure that says, we cannot continue like this. We're going to do this instead. So at a global level, and we won't see the results of it immediately, but this activation that's happened in May, and spoiler alert, there's a lot more of it coming in the rest of this year, and I'll get onto that right near the end of the podcast, as to why that is. But we might be starting to see the big, brave societal structural changes being made at a smaller individual level that will then provide a template. Because at the moment, no one's brave enough to say, okay, we're going to do it different, because it's untested. But I think we're now on the tipping point of those major changes starting to happen.
I totally agree, 100%. And it's so funny because when he mentioned the banking thing for me as well, I've been having conversations about, how can we deal with our money differently, because I don't want to put my money in banks and stuff like that. And what I thought was really fascinating about what the Z's said is that it basically says they were saying exactly what you just said, is that, but they talked about it through the frame of agriculture. And they would say, like, you will just be tending to your garden, and you will find a way that you will be able to farm or to garden with, in a biodynamic way, in an organic way. And then you'll share that with your friends, and then they will share that. And then all of a sudden it will become a movement. And when you were speaking, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. Like I feel, and my intuition's been pretty bang on, I feel like I would have to agree, because I feel like the new banking has been birthed. And when when the Z's were speaking, one of the things for me is I was intuitively shown a VHS. And what that means to me is like that there's this moment in time. There's a moment in time where there's that small bridge, because we can't go straight from here to there. It's like our VHS moment is just around the corner. And yeah, I love that. So I love that you also feel that that's the way we're heading, because that really resonates with me.
It's interesting that you bring up the community orchard garden thing, because that's something that's been really strong for me, that we've got a piece of land out the back of my parents' house that nobody uses. Nobody really knows who owns it. I've been trying to get the council to let us buy it for a long time, but they won't, because they don't know who actually owns it. So I'm just at the point where I'm like, I'm just going to start planting fruit trees on there. Who's going to stop me? So yeah.
I love that. And I think that do it, because I think that this is definitely the direction that we're going in. So exciting times.
Yeah. So yeah, that's me. June wise, looking forward, I quite liked what I did last time about overall themes. So I pulled out the overall themes for June. They're a bit more extensive than the themes that were for May, which were mutation, individuation, and I can't remember what else. Tolerance, I think. So overall themes for June, looking ahead. Communication and action is one theme. There's a lot of throat gates being activated. Friends and family, caring and nourishment, and compassion and tolerance. So I'll go through why all of that's kind of getting a bit of a highlight. So the first theme one, communication and action, is because of all this throat gate action. Mars has actually been in the throat gates mostly. You know, if you look at the wheel of the year and you look towards the base of it, you will see that the bottom quarter, Q2, is throat gates with a little shot of root in the middle. So that's why Mars has been in Q2 for a long time. So since last autumn, Mars has been doing all this, and it's a very active planet. So there's a lot of attention and awareness around throat gate action. Venus has been in the throat since early April. In June, the sun is in mostly throat, but so is Mercury, and Uranus, of course, has entered gate 23, which is the first of the throat gates in the mandala. So that's kind of saying to us that Uranus is about to go through a very, very long, several decade probably through process of throat gate.
Wow.
So, and in terms of channels to the throat, we're going to start the month of June with another activation of the channel of transitoriness. Gate 35 is being activated by the sun, and 36, of course, Neptune has been in there seemingly since the dawn of time. So it feels like it's been there a very, very long time.
I love it. I feel like that, you know, makes sense, right? Like we're in our dark night of the soul, but we are we're coming out of it. We're coming out of it.
Yeah, it's not got too long to go, she says, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Oh no, it's not. I'm lying. It's about to go retrograde. We've got at least another year of it.
Yeah, right.
So channel of transitoriness will be the global throat activation, which is solar plexus to the throat on the abstract collective circuitry, emotionally manifested channel. And that will be dates from the 2nd to the 7th of June. We've also got Mars in 33. We've got Venus in 56 at the same time. So that's actually all 3 abstract circuitry throat gates activated. So loads of opportunity for the expression of visual memory, ideas, making sense of the past, sharing secrets, sharing emotional experiences, talking about the emotional progress we've made.
Oh my God. I'm about to walk the Camino. That sounds exactly what I'm going to be doing, sharing lots of stories with all that stuff.
Yeah. It's a very good week for that kind of stuff. Talk therapy, public speaking, sharing your emotional stories. Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's how we're starting off June, in a very open, sharing, abstracted kind of way.
Love it.
We'll also have during that week Mercury and Uranus in conjunction in that gate 23. So there's this finding an outlet for your unique inner knowing is also very much on the table. So loads of throat stuff. So if you've got anything hanging, pointing at the throat, it's likely that you're going to get that. And it's quite, I imagine it's, I don't have an open throat, but I imagine it's quite relaxing for people with open throats to get suddenly, you know, this buildup of pressure and this consistent access to be able to communicate a bit more easily.
I don't know. I'll have to ask someone. I'll have to ask Justin.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll ask
Justin what it's like.
Yeah.
Theme 2 is friends, family, caring and nourishment. And this we've touched on it last month. But it's coming in a bit. And for some reason, known only to my spleen, I was inspired to go back and look at the beginning of the pandemic. When I looked at the positions of gates 27 and 37, which is caring and nourishment, friends and family, like for June, I had this little twinkle of, I wonder what was happening at the beginning of the pandemic. So back in 2020, both Saturn and Jupiter were in gate 60, limitations, which is obviously where Pluto is now. Uranus was in gate 27, which is now in 23. So, and then Neptune was in 22. We had this new, unusual from Uranus, deep emotional limitations, 22, 60. Our ability to care and nourish and be socially open were all affected by this limitation. We basically couldn't get anywhere near the people we cared about or wanted to be social with.
Mm.
So that's Uranus in 27. When we look at it now, we've got Jupiter and the North Node in 27 rather than Uranus. We've actually got Saturn, instead of it being in gate 60, limitations, it's now in gate 37, friends and family. Neptune in 36 rather than 22, so a different emotional gate, but very right next to each other. And then Pluto in the gate 60. So there's a lot of similar energies being activated by the outer planets, is basically the vibe, but in a different configuration. When I look at this configuration, rather than the restriction, because there's no 22, Neptune in the 22, which is dissolving social openness, that's the element that's missing, but there's all the other elements present. So the overall vibe I'm thinking is an increase in caring and nourishment, because it's Jupiter and the North Node in 27. So that's much more about where we're going and an abundance of energy. And it's usually quite a bright energy, Jupiter. So an increase in caring and nourishment, possibly limited for immediate family, but maybe more directed at an acceptance of unique insights. That's Uranus in 23. And a compassionate attitude to the collective in general. That's Neptune in 36. So while there are very real limitations facing all of us because of this Pluto deal, it's almost as if the rest of the planets are supporting an awareness and an understanding and a caring more through that. But of course, when we're talking about human design, we're always talking about the or not. There's always the other end of the spectrum. So that would then look like a lack of compassion and tolerance for individual voices, a lack of caring, a rejection of family and friends, and an extremely limited viewpoint.
And you know what, like just hearing all of that, what it makes me think is, maybe this is the shift that's starting to happen, because the or not is maybe these governing energies that have kind of been conditioning us for a long time. And maybe people are becoming, more nurturing, more compassionate, that other friendly family. Because, even the way you were talking about it made me think, more accepting of each other, connecting with each other. So for me, it feels like the potential is to start to even more significantly shift that balance of power from the few to the many. So that's the way I'm going to focus on it.
Well, I think we always see both, it's like Star Wars, Jedi and Sith. There's always both. There's always a constant kind of, fluctuation in the balance of who's got the upper hand or seemingly got the upper hand at any one time. Of course, I think one of the things that's most interesting to me about this very particular moment that we're living through in time is this cancel culture minority of, very loud, very outspoken voices, where the tolerance for diversity of viewpoints is basically zero. Cancel culture is the most extreme example. And of course, we can't help but look at the most extreme examples. There's something in us that is kind of drawn to look at these wildly extreme examples where most people, and we can tend to think that that's the dominant culture. Most people are extremely moderate. Most people sit somewhere in the middle of the bell curve, not right out at the extreme. But we can learn a lot, I think. If we're looking at cancel culture, which basically says, if you don't voice an opinion that exactly matches mine, I'm going to destroy your life. I'm going to make you lose your job. I'm going to totally deplatform you. That's the upshot of cancel culture. I'm going to bully you into silence. Your truth, often historical truth, like something you said many years ago, isn't welcome here. So that kind of very, very extreme intolerance for multiple viewpoints is teaching us something. I think it's teaching us through fear, which is not my preferred method of learning, but it's teaching us through fear to be careful with what we say in case it hurts other people. Maybe historically we've been pretty blasé about what we say and have had limited awareness of who it hurts. And maybe this very extreme version of the theme is helping everyone to have a little bit more awareness. Now, like I said, it's through fear of I daren't say what I think in case I get cancelled. but still, it's bringing a certain amount of awareness to it.
I love that. And I just want to, can I jump in, or was there?
Sure, yeah, go. Yeah, go.
I want to jump in because I feel this is really, really on point. So I think it was last Transits episode. One of the things I said, people were upset about, like they're upset about, but they,
really?
Yeah. And my community, I just have to shout them out again because they are so freaking awesome, because there was no cancel culture. There was just someone, one person reached out and said, hey, you said this thing, and I kind of feel like maybe you don't know that much about it. It made me feel like this. I love your work, but just wanted you to know. And then someone else reached out, and I was like, oh, cool. Can you give me a podcast? Can you give me some information? Can I learn? And my entire community, they reached out in a really supportive and, understanding way. And then when I, the next episode, I was like, hey, I just realized I might have said something from a really uneducated point of view. Again, the response was amazing, and other people gave me things to listen to and to educate myself. So I feel like this community is really at the forefront because, they don't tear each other down. The people, you listening to this, you guys are unique. You're out there leading the way. It's just so important because, you can see that the thing that came out of my mouth, like I just didn't know as much as someone else would know about it. And at no point was it my intention to hurt anyone. I didn't mean to be ignorant about it. And not one of you lashed out or had a crack. And I'm sure there were people at home that had a crack that I'm not aware of, like maybe not, but each to their own. But my point is that I really feel like I see in my community and the listeners here, whether it's on Instagram or in HDX, I see the future. I see people actually coming from that heart-led, did you realize, I want to help educate, this is another viewpoint. Thank you for, educating yourself or whatever it might be. And I just, again, want to shout these people out because I feel like so often this community is at the head of the curve. They are at that place where they're so heart-led and they're compassionate and they're genuinely every day out there trying to be the better human. They're not being unconscious to these things. So I feel like a lot of what we're bringing is really giving them potential just to be even more awesome and spectacular. So I just wanted to shout out how awesome they are.
Yeah, that's so gorgeous and exactly how it should be done, right? Like it really is an example of how we should be interacting with each other, with assuming the best in people rather than assuming the worst.
Yeah.
And I think, angry voices and extreme voices are an expression of three things: fear, hurt, and pain.
Exactly.
And it's a testament to the community listening that they're not coming from a place of fear, hurt, and pain. It's a testament to how healed the people in this community are, that they are able to reach out with a moderated and best of intentions voice rather than an angry, fearful, hurt voice.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I've had some people reach out about, one or two guests that I've had that are in a situation where they're really faced with a lot of challenges, and maybe a guest has thrown a sort of a flippant comment. But even in those situations, like I'm so incredibly grateful because it comes from this, like I don't want to use the word mature, but it is this kind of like they have enough belief in themselves. They have enough belief in the work. They have enough love and compassion that they're like, you know what, that wasn't ideal for me. It made me feel this way. And, I'm not going to make a rash decision upon that. I just wanted to let you know. So I think that's, I don't know. I'm just really impressed by my community and the people who listen to this. So thank you.
Yeah. And one thing to point out from a human design perspective is a lot of us have unconsciously defined throats, myself included. I don't know what's coming out of my mouth if I'm speaking off the cuff until it's out of my mouth. It's too late. Now, the reason this podcast is conscious to me is because I prep the living bejesus out of it, because I can't trust my unconsciously defined throat I've got no conscious awareness. Both of my throat channels are red in my Bodygraph. So
mine's conscious and I still feel like I don't have any idea what's about to come out of my mouth.
Well, it's generated from a non-awareness center, right? Mine at least is coming from a spleen, coming from an awareness center.
Yeah.
But when you hear someone say something that is probably ill-considered, or like you say, uneducated, consider where it's coming from. Like if you know their body graph, like if we're listening to Emma, it's her sacral just shouting stuff out of her mouth through the 3420, which incidentally, as we're recording, is active for the whole planet because the Sun Earth are in there. So I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth either, because I've also got a sacrally generated throat right now.
Watch out.
Just if we look at it as a, sorry, there's a very loud bird outside.
It's beautiful.
You can hear it. It's a wren, actually, which is one of my spirit birds. It is a wren.
Yes. So cute.
Very, very loud. Shush, I'm trying to record. Well, God, it's thrown me off. What I was saying was, we're a human design community. Human design is all about loving ourselves and each other through understanding of the mechanics of what is happening. So, when we listen to someone like, let's use Donald Trump because he's a classic example, he's got an emotionally manifested voice, He's not waiting in any way, shape or form. So there's just random emotions coming out of his mouth, coming out of his tweets. We can have some understanding as a human design community by seeing what's happening and understanding, that makes sense. Just raw emotion, straight out. Yeah. No conscious awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wonderful. Good. That's wonderful. I'm very glad that you received that kind of, considered and gentle feedback. Yeah. Let's talk about 27 some more while we're talking about caring and nourishment, if we haven't talked about it enough already. Because we've done, the nodes, the North Node's been in there for 5 months nearly, and I've spoken about it through the I Ching perspective. I've spoken about it through the Gene Keys perspective. Recent activity in 27, North Node since early Feb, Mercury retrograde included gate 27, Venus and the Sun were in there in April. Jupiter's going to be in 27 for most of June. I'll give you the exact dates. Actually starts in a few days, 26th of May to the 21st of June. What I want to talk about is it's the full channel. So 27 to 50. 27 is this power to care. It's coming off the sacral. It's powerful. Anyone who follows Kim Gould, who's Emma's human design mentor, will know about the asteroid Hermea, which has been in gate 50, which is the other end of the channel, since 2020, and it continues to be there until next year. So Hermea is making a channel with Jupiter. I don't have a huge amount of understanding of the minor planets and the asteroids. I've done a little bit of Kim's training, but not a lot. Basically, it's too much for me. I just don't have the capacity to hold all the minor planets and asteroids in my conscious awareness.
Yeah, it's intense. There's lots.
It's really intense.
Yeah.
You've got to have some kind of, hyper functioning awareness to be able to hold all that.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting, that we have this channel of preservation, this channel of caring for what we have created. And I think to a degree it applies to the general feeling. We talk a lot about the transitions and the changes and the mutations that are happening in society, but there is also this channel of preservation on saying, but care for what we've created. Like, most of what we've created as a human society is for good. Why do we create hospitals? Because we want people to have a place to go when they're physically really challenged.
Yeah.
So all this stuff, there's a general theme on at the moment, while there's a lot of activity in 27 of, let's not just throw it all out, let's preserve some of it. Like, we need a foundation and a platform from which to build on, not just, I know it's the Sleeping Phoenix cross, there's this story of burning it all to the ground and starting again, but I actually think there is much more value in maintaining the good bits, keep not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I think that's our VHS moment, just saying. I think the whole, I totally agree.
It's also worth mentioning, yes, we have the major planets that we all know about in the solar system, but all of these minor planetary bodies or asteroids or whatever they are, I think it's worth just mentioning generally, Haumea is sitting out in the Kuiper Belt, and the Kuiper Belt is like a donut-shaped ring round about where Pluto is. It's past Neptune. It's on the outskirts of the solar system, and there are tons and tons of Kuiper Belt objects out there. Haumea being one of them, but there's infinite probably. Pluto got demoted because they were like, oh, look, there's other bodies not that far from Pluto in the same region of space that are just about as big as Pluto, if not as big. So it kind of got demoted from planetary status when they realized there's more. The gas giants, the 4 gas giants in our outer solar system, are named after male gods, right? And Pluto, of course, the demoted 9th planet. It's interesting, I think, to look at the way that planets are being named now. Haumea, for example, and Makemake, Kwewa, all of these kind of indigenous gods or indigenous deities, a lot of them, very balanced in the masculine and feminine, not so much like in the polarities. It's an interesting thing to think of. We were all kind of raised with like, yeah, there's 9 planets and just empty vacuum. And now we're like, no, space is full of stuff. There is a lot of stuff. There's a lot more influencing us than we're aware of. Comets, dwarf planets, asteroids. We've got the main asteroid belt sitting between Mars and Jupiter, where Ceres, Vesta, Pallas, Hygeia, all these goddess dwarf planets sit. I think it's interesting that they were named in the late 1800s, I think, early to late 1800s. So I was like, oh wow, they're all named after female goddesses. And then I was like, maybe because they're tiny in comparison to the gas giants, and that's why they were like, well, they're little, so they can't be men. They must be women. But now I think it's very interesting that the Kuiper Belt objects, most of which I've looked at who's discovering them, and they are mostly white men, but they're naming them for the native gods and deities of Hawaii, Easter Island, Native America. Like, I think we can see as a culture the way that we name and what is our expanding awareness. The more awareness we have of the structure of the solar system and beyond, the more galactic we become, the more aware of, oh my goodness, we are a teeny tiny little dot in this vast and diverse and incredible cosmos. I think it's just an interesting note that most of the Kuiper Belt objects now are being named after indigenous gods and deities. So we are probably coming into a time of an increased importance of indigenous awareness, knowledge, wisdom. Like, we're not going to genocide it completely. We are going to actually preserve it and learn from it as much as possible, is my feeling.
Yeah, well, we've got all those points in history when all the bigger planets were discovered, and how they directly impact like all the discoveries or the shifts or the changes in the way we did things. I just think that's fascinating. And even because we're at the time of discovering these things oblivious to it, and we give it some what seems like random name, and then all of a sudden whatever that name represents nah, that's not random. We're just chess pieces being moved around a board.
I love
it.
Exactly. So there's a huge, human design is the Uranian life cycle, right? Uranus was discovered, and that changed our makeup. We became 7 to 9 center beings from a human design perspective. So the discovery and the naming and the expansion of our awareness into the Kuiper Belt, even the Oort field, which is like way out beyond the Kuiper Belt. If you have any interest in this kind of thing, which I do, because I'm a little science/space geek, I think it's a really interesting feeling of this rapid expansion. And we can, rapid expansion in population, rapid expansion in technology, rapid expansion. It's all just an expression of, proliferation of everything.
Crazy times.
So, slight tangent there into the outer solar system. What I'm saying is, I think a little bit of awareness of this, that there are other influences at play that are not just the big gas giants, and local planets in the solar system. There are all these cosmic consciousness, vast web of influences that we're subject to here on Earth, and most of us can't handle that. Like, mentally, it takes quite a lot of expansion to be able to even hold that concept. But I think it's where we're headed. You know, we're expanding our consciousness so rapidly that we will be able to hold the feeling of cosmic consciousness, and I can feel it. I can feel the connection. I don't have to, if I try and think about it, I can't do it. But if I just open my heart and expand my awareness, I feel like I can be conscious of most of it, you know, a lot of it.
Yeah.
My consciousness can expand.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely.
That noise, you can understand where I'm going.
I love it. But I also think that the evidence is here, you know, like, as I always bring it back to that, the practicality pieces, like the external clues are there, you know, the shifts and changes that are happening on planet Earth is that we are looking to the wiser, you know, elders on the planet, the indigenous people. We are understanding the importance of the earth and therefore bringing the more feminine energies to the forefront. Like, it's no surprise that we're having greater awareness on that galactic level, because in my opinion, you know, all of that is going to be, we're going to see more than just freaking planet Earth in our lifetime. You know, like, we're going to have some massive expansions. I just know it. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense. It's like we've raised the consciousness of the globe to a certain level that we're now accessing. And yes, our technology can just, you know, is starting to access it, but our consciousness had to rise first. So I think that's what's fascinating to watch, because as our consciousness rises, then we just have so much access to, oh shit, there's all this other stuff going on, you know, whether it's dimensions, timelines, galaxy, you know, what's happening out there. Like, it's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah. So resources for anyone who feels like they also want to geek out on this. Emma's mentor, Kim Gould at Love Your Design, she does this the combo of human design references plus all of these minor planets and asteroids. And then also Pam Gregory, who's an astrologer on YouTube. She's very interested in Kuiper Belt objects, their mythologies, their potential significance. So she does a lot of work on that if you want interested. We can link it as well if you want. Should I drag myself back to the original topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
I just went on a random tangent. I want to just quickly pop through the lines of 27, because, you know, studying the lines in human design is a level that some people, you know, have no interest in getting to, but I think this one particularly is quite a nice example. So last time I was talking about 27 from the I Ching perspective, quoting Hilary Barrett's book. Today I want to look at the Rave I Ching, so Ra's original document on human design keynotes, and see if we can learn anything from them about what Jupiter's bringing in June for all of us. Let's start with the keynote for 27, the enhancement of the quality and the substance of all activities through caring. Basically, everything is better if you care while you're doing it. It's about 4.5 days per line from the 26th of May to the 21st of June. So let's walk through them. It's a sacral gate. I mentioned it's always associated with energy and power. So you will hear the words power and strength used a lot in the explanations of this gate. So we start in line 1, which is, let me check the dates, 25th to the 29th of May. So just gone as this podcast goes out. Line 1 is selfishness. Now, gate of caring, but selfishness? Yes, the power to care for yourself first. Anyone with gate 27 line 1 in their birth chart is going to have a more selfish expression of this energy, because it's the foundation of caring. The power being generated by that, the sacral gate, is fixed in the expression of selfishness. I have to care for myself first. So they may never get to, say, the line 4 expression, which is generosity, but because they're fixed in the 1. But as a planet, we're about to get the whole spectrum. So in May, late May, caring for yourself first is the theme from Jupiter. If you're a wreck, you cannot care for anyone else. So we're not looking for a judgmental position on selfishness. We're saying this is just the isness of it. We then move into, from late May to early June, line 2, self-sufficiency. The obvious, this is quoting from the Ravi Ching, the obvious law that to give one must have, which is the strength to power and to nurture and the power to care. So it's slightly different from selfishness. It's self-sufficient. I'm sufficient. I'm already cared for. I have put my needs first. I'm pretty solid. And I personally feel pretty solid in this. And I imagine you do too, Emma. You feel like I have cared for myself and I feel pretty self-sufficient. I don't actually really need that much from anyone.
Yeah, concur.
I care for myself. I nourish myself. I speak to myself in a kind voice. I give my body what it needs to feel rested or replenished or stimulated or cared for. I fill my own cup so that it can overflow.
Yeah.
Self-sufficiency. Line 3 is greed. The obsession with having more than one needs. Now you can see where how you would get from 1 to 2 to 3. I'm selfish. I need to care for myself. It's a need. I'm self-sufficient. I'm fully cared for. Greed. We get stuck in a loop and that's all we can do is care for ourselves, and we've forgotten that anyone else even needs caring for. So this this energy where the 2 starts to loop a bit. We've become habituated to caring for ourselves, that we're not actually letting the cup overflow in the direction of others. It's just we're trying to expand the size of the cup, like I need more.
Yeah.
Thinking we need more for ourselves when we actually probably don't. Line 4, generosity. Let me check the dates for 3 and 4. 3 is 3rd of June to the 7th, and then 4, 8th to the 12th. So line 4 is generosity, the natural sharing of attained abundance. There it is. We've realized we've got enough and we can give some away. The key to this for line 4 is to be discriminating about where you are giving and what you are giving, i.e., does the recipient actually need it, or is it a waste of resources? Now, I find this, I think partly it's a wound, as in I find it very difficult to receive, but also quite often people are trying to give to me and give me their resources when I don't need them because I'm so well personally resourced. So when people try and give to me and do stuff for me and take care of me, I'm a bit like, you're wasting your energy, mate. I don't need it. Like, I'm totally self-cared for. You'd be better to use this energy that you're trying to generously give in my direction to someone who is actually depleted. And my mum is a classic example of this. She's constantly trying to give me stuff, and I'm like, Mum, I mean, I know this is an expression of love for you, but I really don't need anything. Like, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
So there must be discrimination with generosity. It can't just be indiscriminate. Line 5 is the executor, which is the ability to effectively distribute the resources of others. So then we're in full abundance, right? Because there are so many resources. It's now no longer about us and ours. It's about universalizing. Always line 5 is about universalization. That's not a word, Jenny. That's got too many vowels in it.
That's all right. It is here.
Here you can see that we've been granted the capacity to share not just our own resources, but also the resources of someone or something else, like a rich philanthropist, like a company employee well-being fund, charitable donations, more resources. So at this point, we're like, actually, hang on a minute, let me look around. Oh, there's loads of stuff here. Let's distribute this in a way that's helping nourish and care for the most number of people possible. And then line 6, wariness, a protection against an abuse of generosity. There will be always those who don't need, but are just greedy and who will take advantage of someone giving stuff away. So this line, the 6, sees the whole thing, and it brings a reassessment of the caring and the giving we've been doing, and it almost asks us to return to line 1. Like, is this generosity being abused? Am I being taken for granted? Have I actually got the capacity? And then it seems like it almost loops back. So that journey is the Jupiter journey of June.
Wow. I love that. I'm now going to be consciously aware of that as I'm walking and just see how it plays out.
Yes. Oh, and it's such a great cauldron of experience, isn't it? The walking the Camino, to be able to give, or to be able, when do you need to care for yourself? When do you feel like you've got enough?
Exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that takes us all the way through to 22nd of June, when it moves into gate 24. Jupiter moves into gate 24, the return Ajna gate, and that's just after the solstice. So basically this 27 process takes us all the way up to the solstice. Summer solstice in the northern and winter in the southern.
Ooh, I'll get the summer solstice.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, I know.
Doubled up.
I'm excited. Yay.
Gosh, what a wonderful time to be walking when it's so light. How gorgeous.
I know, right? I'm excited.
So yeah, so the nodes, let's go back to the nodes. That's Jupiter. We've also had North Node in gate 27, and that's been in line, that's in line 2, which was self-sufficiency, until the 16th of June. So that's the main highlight for the nodal axis part of that transit. But then, if anyone listening remembers, the nodes progress in retrograde motion. They don't go the way everything else in the mandala goes. Their progress goes backwards. So the North Node from line 2 will move into line 1, selfishness. This is at the same time that Jupiter is in line 6, wariness. So it's almost like you can feel like there's like a bow being tied between the two of them.
Yeah, far out.
And then, because the nodes move retrograde, where would the North Node go? I bet there's about 3 people listening to this who are like, oh, I know. It's where Jupiter's just been, because it's going backwards. So where's Jupiter just been? Gate 3. So where's the North Node going? Gate 3. So what does that mean? Channel of mutation is activated by the North Node, because Pluto's in gate 60. So not only have we just had just over 3 weeks of that channel because of Jupiter, we're now going to get just over 2 months of that channel because of the node. So much, much more 360.
Wow, that's exciting for me. I have all the good stuff of May, thanks. All the good stuff.
Yeah. More May.
Clear. Yeah.
But all the way through July and August. So from the end of June to the end of August. So yeah, that mutation party, not over yet. And then because of the North Node, of course, the South Node will move with it. South Node has been gate 28, which is the gate of the fighter for the last 5 months. And as the North Node moves into 3, the South Node will go into the programming partner of 3, which is the gate 50, which is, the gate of values. So this is probably going to feel like a bit of a blessed relief, as in gate of the fighter, which is where the South Node's been, as in people just picking fights left, right, and center, with no intuitive awareness of what's even worth fighting for. We're finally going to get some of this gate 50, which is a splenic gate, which is the knowing, the intuitive, instinctive knowing of which historical tribal values are important and worth sticking up for. And it's a gate that says, it's this baby in the bathwater thing. It says, I remember we used to really value that. Remember, isn't this one of the core human values that we don't want to get rid of? I suspect that because Uranus is in gate 23 and about to go retrograde on the 18th of June, that historical values continuity theme from gate 50 is going to be related to gate 23, which is tolerance of individual voices, free speech, right to peaceful protest.
I love that.
I really think that is a hot topic, a really hot topic.
Yeah. I think we've definitely also, like when you say that, I feel like we're not all the way there yet, but I think we've definitely pushed the needle. I definitely think that there is more free speech. I definitely think that there is more opportunity, or at least the powers that be are starting to realize that they can't necessarily control the entire narrative. Now, yes, they still have a massive control over a large portion of the narrative, but I think that we're starting to see that needle shift, and that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, if anyone wants a little resource for this, I saw a rapper called Killer Mike giving a speech about free speech at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which is acronymed FIRE, the FIRE Gala 2023. It's on YouTube, and we can link it, but he gave this brilliant speech about free speech and said, we should vehemently advocate for those we don't agree with.
Yeah.
And that is strong, as in he's saying in order for us to have the right to express, everyone has to have the right to express, even if they are profoundly in opposition to our viewpoint. It's the principle. I mean, if you're in America, it's the First Amendment, it's all of that kind of stuff. But I even listening to him speak made me really challenge myself a little bit about my ability to tolerate difference of opinion and what I view as right and wrong. You know, I'm raised in a pretty socialist, left-wing kind of family environment, and that's the political kind of leaning that I grew up with. But I just took it on, you know, like I think a lot of us do. We just take it on as that's the way it is. And being able to listen to voices that are not that has been a huge part of my rounding out as a human being, my willingness to listen to everyone I disagree with, so that I can see basically where they're coming from, and it's the same place. It's all coming from the same place.
100%.
You know, I want to be
100%.
happy. I want to be free. I want to live peacefully. And also there's all these energies in my body that need to express, and I don't know how to express them. Usually they express as aggression and violence and intolerance, but they're actually just a really vibrant energy that's saying, I've got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I don't hunt and kill for my own food anymore. You know, I don't have any outlet for this energy. So this speech is if anyone wants to
sounds amazing,
go down that rabbit hole, it's really great
to check it out. I think it's such an important point, you know, for us to be able to consciously choose to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and you know, actually listen without formulating our opinion in our head while we're listening to someone that we don't agree with. This has definitely been a practice for me since I was little, you know, like just why would they act that way? It came from that, like, in fact, the Z's said it like, did they really say that? Like, as a kid, that would really bother me. So I learned to go, okay, well, if I put myself in their shoes, what else could be going on? And I do feel like that this is a really powerful time. And I totally agree with, you know, like free speech is the ability for everyone to be able to express themselves, and us as adults taking full responsibility to say, and it's okay if I don't agree with people. I don't need to prove my point, or I don't need to fight for my point, or I don't need to, you know, defend my opinion, because I personally think that that's where all of the separation comes from. If we were more interested in listening and educating ourselves, then things would be freer, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting balancing act, and I think we'll always be within the balance, as in we're never going to nail it, because that's the nature of being human. We're constantly dancing and evolving and you know, swinging between, you know, is it all right that someone expresses violent, hateful speech? I'd rather they didn't, but do I support their right to express it? I don't know, maybe. I don't know where the line is, you know, personally.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that it's even bigger than that, you know, like I think it's this piece that we're moving towards a time where we have to stop looking at like right, wrong, good or bad. Instead, ask ourselves, what can we learn from this? You know, I think that's definitely something that underpins a lot of my responses. I'm not saying reactions. I'm a human. So there's times that I still react and whatever. And I often think that if we just choose to have this question in our back pocket, you know, that we can be in a place of, okay, well, what can I learn from this? Because if someone feels that passionately about something, what's going on for them, you know? And then it's very quick from that point to, wow, they've experienced certain trauma, or they've experienced certain conditioning, or, you know, their paradigm of the world is very different to mine. How did it get that way? And instead of being like, well, which one's right and which one's wrong, it's this place of, let's just be curious and try and understand. It's that real depth of understanding. And I mean, you know, it's never going to be, like you say, we're human. It's never going to be perfect. But I think that if we just have that question, like, what can I learn from this? It's a much different response that we will have to someone that we would normally just straight out disagree with.
Yeah, in the I Ching, the gate 23 is called the stripping away. And it is about everything that is, it's the stripping away is almost like a rotten fruit that's fallen to the ground. And the stripping away is the stripping away of the fleshy bit of the fruit to get to the nut, to get to the seed, to get to the core, the living core of the thing. And it can feel, if you imagine you're the fruit and all of this part of your body that you identified with is gone, and there's just this essence, the true essence of you right in the middle, and the essence of the future as well, like the essence of what's going to create the new peach tree or whatever. Sorry, there's a massive hornet trying to get in the van.
Stay away.
So I'm gonna read from Hilary Barrett again on the 23, because I think her words are so, I know the human design is not the I Ching, yada yada, but still I quite like to reference the I Ching, because I think it's,
I'm an MG, babe, you know me, like let's just chuck them all together and see what happens.
Yep. Okay. 23, stripping away. The surfaces are cut and sliced away. The old and unviable is stripped back to expose the living core. This inevitable natural process often feels like a flaying. The more you have invested of yourself in these old things, the more painful it will be. It's no good at such times to imagine the future and make plans. You need to bring your energy back to the center and honor the process. This is a time to be transformed, not to act. Moreover, the old is so utterly stripped away from you that you have no choice but to think in new ways. You will only be able to recreate the old patterns. This is a picture of stripping away at its highest potential. As a constant, gradual, natural, and painless process, everything that is built up, power or achievement, the edifice of self and identity, must continually erode away. It leaves behind an enriched inner world and a quiet sense of being at home here.
I love that. And I just had this whole image of, like just coming back to that heart space, like everything we were just talking about, like just coming back to that heart space, and that's all, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Because when we look at each other through the heart space, there is no disagreement.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. The old is so utterly stripped away from you that you have no choice but to think in new ways. So what if we had no choice but to force ourselves to think in new ways? It's already happening, but this is kind of the process that Uranus is bringing in. And Uranus is moving ahead of Jupiter in the wheel. So Uranus is there now. I think Jupiter's there in 2024, next year, I think in April. So again, then it starts to kind of become more anchored in, So one of the things that I think we are looking at, and I've just found my notes, yes, it is 2024, April 2024, is a more culturally embodied expression of this 23 is going to start to come through, but right now it's still at this kind of voiced potential. So we're still at this, are we afraid to speak? Cancel culture might limit a lot of voices, but when we ask ourselves why we would be speaking, if it's because we're afraid of being silenced or being misunderstood, or afraid of being dominated by the other person, or being afraid as being perceived as, I don't know, dull, boring, weird, too out there, all these fear-based reasons that most people don't speak or speak. If we can get into this kernel of the fruit, what is the essence of my truth? What is the one thing that I really need to express? I think what you will find is that the expression of your voice will come through with clarity, precision, and this deep inner knowing of the truth. Because if you look at it in the Bodygraph, it's coming from 61, this channel of this gate of mystery, this understanding of your unique insight at its essence is an essential contribution to the whole. Once you've distilled it down and got to the nuts and bolts of it, it's essential to be shared.
Powerful stuff.
Final theme, because we went a long time on that second one, but linking into it was compassion and tolerance. So the tolerance part is very much linked to the 23. And the South Node going into gate 50, you know, these values that we need to hold in order to allow for tolerance of individual expression. But the compassion piece, of course, comes from Neptune still in gate 36. And the darkening of the light and the emotional crisis is still working away in the background there, at least a year, at least half a year, if not a year to go, still dissolving us, still reminding us that unless we feel something very, very deeply, we aren't going to change and make progress. The real progress, the real change comes from the capacity to be with the darkening of the light. Neptune in 36 says, don't forget what you are really here for, to be a witness, to remember, to reflect. This is the end of a cycle. Can you be here for that? Do you have the awareness to recognize that? Can you take it? And can you remember that the light always returns, and that, and this is a quote from the Ray V. Ching in 36, the powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. Gate 36, line 6, which is where Neptune is in June and July and into August. So this summer is reminding us the powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. So what do we need to do? Witness and remember and wait for the return of the light.
I love that. Yeah, that's good. Awesome. That's it. Oh my God, I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful place to leave it, because I so feel like we're all feeling it, you know, and we're seeing that glimmer of light. Even though there's going to be this transitional phase, it's not all going to, you know, flip overnight. I really do believe that we're starting to see more and more evidence of this new world, this new paradigm. And it's, for me, I really believe that it's just important for us to really love, trust, and accept ourselves, believe it is possible for us, and act as if it is, because then we're going to project that out into the world, that it's not just possible for us, it's possible for everybody. So I love that. Anything else you want to add? No, she's done. She's done. I love it. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. For the transits next month, we're going to have a guest host, because I will be out walking the Camino, learning lots of lessons that I will bring back and share with you. I will be posting on my Instagram every day, because last time I did that for myself, and I've enjoyed for the last 5 years going back to the posts that I really just posted for myself. So if you want to follow our journey, please feel free to follow along on my Instagram, which is the Human Design Coach. You'll find it. There's a few fakes out there, so just make sure you find the one with the blue tick. And yeah, so Jen, you're going to have the amazing Jess Barbaco to chat with next month.
It's going to be so interesting. I've already been kind of thinking about how different it will be to be sitting with a manifester.
I'm excited.
And whether or not I just let her initiate instead of it all being me. That might be interesting.
Do you know what I love on that point, and then I want to hear whatever was coming next. Jess, I've noticed over the years, and I mean, she's a very dear friend of mine now. I've noticed that she is the most comfortable initiator to be around, you know, like sometimes it can feel uncomfortable, and maybe because I'm her people as well. But I almost have a habit of just leaving it up to her now, you know, like so it'll be really interesting to see how that feels. Yeah.
And also the, you know, manifestors and reflectors tend to feel the transits more strongly than projectors and generators, because of the way their aura functions, you know, because their aura is a bit more reflective to the human auras around, or resistant to the human auras, but much more available to the transit aura. So I'm really interested to hear what Jess has got to say from that perspective as well.
That's so exciting, because that means I will be listening to the Transits podcast while I'm walking, because I want to hear that conversation. So thanks so much, Jen. I will see you in a month or so. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us again on our beautiful transits episode for the month. And I look forward to having you on the next one. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jen. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.